Hi, everyone. Today we have an awesome guest that's joining us for our chat. And here we have Niba, who's joining us today. Niba played college. You can name all the titles. While playing college, she got all of them. She's an amazing player. I met Niba. Niba, I met you in South Africa, right?
I
We
think
met each other
actually,
in South Africa.
actually, I think it was Nigeria. Did you play? You played in 2009, right? Remember Nigeria, Benin, the ITF tour in
I think
January?
I did play those, but I think I met you in South Africa first before Nigeria because 2009, I came to the US 2010.
2006. Sorry, I had the year wrong. 2006,
2006?
January 2006. Yes, that was my first ever ITF. I was like 11.
Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I remember. Yes. Yes. And you used to have like an ankle bracelet that you always put on when you're playing.
I still do. Now I have
Yeah.
two.
You still do. You still do. Okay. Okay. Now I remember. Yeah. And then after that, I met you in South Africa.
Yes, yes.
Awesome. 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 Well, I don't want to steal your thunder. I'm going to let you introduce yourself to to those who are watching, our subscribers, and we can jump in.
Sounds
You
good.
have the floor. Yeah.
Awesome. So I go by Niba, but my name is Niba Ntcha. When I played ITFs, my name was just Stephanie Ntcha because they couldn't put apostrophes at the time. I represent Benin. I played for Benin in much of ITFs and AJCs. And then I played college at Samford in Alabama. After
Awesome.
which I stayed and coached and got my master's and have been coaching tennis since.
Awesome. 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 And for those who are watching, you can literally Google her name and her stats are going to drop, right? So she's not a guest for no reason. She's a guest because she has stats, she has experience. And on top of that, she's a player coming from Africa. She's from Benin, like you guys heard. So she's going to share with us her experience and give us all the tricks and tips on how she handled college, how she going through life after college, after graduating, and how she's actually enjoying her professional life. Now, Nibab, I'm gonna jump in, right? What made you choose tennis out of all the sports? Because you're super talented, and I can see that you're playing pickleball, you're winning. You're super talented. So why tennis?
My mom made me. It was not a choice. It was one actually at the time because I think I was about 8 or 7, and
Okay.
I was playing volleyball at the time. But when and we lived in Niger because of my dad's job, and
Oh,
when we moved back to Benin, I think I don't remember really that part of my life. My mom was in charge, but according to her, we
mhm.
couldn't find a volleyball coach. So she searched around and couldn't find one. And turns out one of her friends, her son was playing tennis. And so we all kind of just followed.
Oh,
And
wow.
I just stuck with it. I was not very good until like age of 13, maybe. It was very
Okay.
painful, but I stuck with it for whatever reason.
Well, I'm sure you enjoyed it. That's why you stuck with it. There's something out of tennis or something that made you stick that, okay, I love this game or I'm enjoying this game. What made you stay with tennis? I know you say you're not sure, but there might be something. Either the outfits, because that's what got me into tennis, right? I'm like, oh, they're cute. I'm gonna go play.
Um, I know for sure it was not really the outfits, just because, I mean, I'm sure you know it's very hard to find tennis outfits in Africa, at least at the time.
That's
It
true.
was very, very hard, especially in West Africa. And I know that wasn't quite it, but I really enjoyed the camaraderie that I got to um, develop, I guess, with all the other players. And at the time,
Hmm.
I remember being small, and we played at the national stadium in
Okay.
New, and there was the best kids were always on center court, and I was on like the lowest court because I couldn't make contact with the ball or any of that. And I kept looking at it, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're so cool. I want to hang out with them, but I need to get better.
Yeah.
And at the time, I think that was another guest on your channel before Loic. So Loic's dad was one of my very first coaches, and oh, he used to rip into us that we would never make it to Central Court. He was very motivating. Like he had a lot to teach us, but really kind of getting to those guys and getting to hang out with them. And I used to see them travel and go places, and I never qualified for like 4 or 5 years, and I felt so left out. And I was like,
Yeah.
one day I will go, one day I will go, and
So you
that
were
was
dreaming.
pardon.
Now I was saying that, so you had that dream of playing on the
Oh,
center court.
and you know the crazy thing is, at the time, I didn't know who any of these like Federer people were. I didn't know this Venus sisters. I had no idea of how big the world of tennis was. For me, it stopped at the National Stadium. That was it. And those kids who were traveling, I thought they were amazing. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to travel. I want to meet other people. And that was it. So I had no idea
That's awesome.
of actually how big the world of tennis was.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So that center court is what really made Niba stay in tennis, if we can put it that way.
I think so.
Yeah, awesome. So Niba, talk to me. What happened after that? So you started tennis in Niger, and you started seeing people playing the center court. So because I know I mean, you got really good. So can you kind of walk us step by step after that?
So I remember when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of girls playing in Benin, and there was a few who were really good. Nino, who's about probably your generation. I know you know Nino really
Yes,
well, and
you
she, I
don't
mean,
only know.
she's great, and she was always so encouraging. Obviously she was a lot better than us, so she was very gracious about like, well, I guess I have to practice with you kids, but it was very motivating because like one day I do want to be like her. And then
Yeah.
there was two other girls with whom I was playing all the time, and both of their dads were coaches. So my family, we didn't know anything about tennis until I started playing. And I remember always losing to these two girls. I kept losing, and they kept going to all the tournaments, all the under 13s, on the under 12, and the 14s, and I was like, oh my gosh, this can't keep happening. And so one year, which was 2006, we played that ITF where I met you in January, and I lost everything. So I kept watching everyone play, and I was like, oh my gosh, everyone's amazing. I need to get to that level. 2 months later, or maybe even a month later, we had a qualifiers for the AJC in Egypt. And we had the three of us had to play one another. And I was like, this is it. This is my time to shine. I've never beaten these girls before. And so I finally do. I beat them both. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? Like, so do I get to finally travel, like to go far, far away?
Oh
And
my
that was the
God.
first tournament. And so I went and played in Egypt. And like
Wow.
lost first round, lost both, like, I mean, whatever. The level was not, I didn't know I didn't know better. So I went, but it was such a good experience because I got to see so many players. But while I was at
Right.
that tournament, I remember really watching the under 18s. I played under 12, and so I was watching the under 18s, and they were hitting the ball so hard, and it was so good. And I remember telling my coach, I was like, "How can they hit the ball so hard with no control?" And he goes, "They have control." That like blew my mind. And so the following match, I was like, let me. It was a consolation match, and I was like, let me try that. And so I remember hitting, and in the corner of my eye, I see on the court a couple men that I didn't know before. Clearly, they were coaches, and they came and they watched my match. And then two came, and I don't remember at all what happened in that match, but I do remember these guys coming over and watching, and coming over and watching. And I was like, are they like, I'm sure the girl I'm playing is pretty good. Like, I wonder why they're here. Like, am I making mistakes? Am I making bad calls? I started questioning everything. I didn't understand why they were there. And later, either that day or the following day, I don't quite remember. That was actually Amin Ben Maklouf, who is the head of the ITF in Africa. He was the one watching me, and he was with Dermot Sweeney, who was at the time
Yep.
head in South Africa, and then a couple other guys that I don't quite remember. And he spoke to me. He was like, well, your tennis looks pretty good. You look like you could play pretty well. Your base is good and all that stuff. And essentially, would you be interested in maybe trying something like more important, or like going to South Africa for a training or something like that? And I was like, me, yes, but I don't know how this works. I don't get to make decisions for my life at 12. You need to talk to my parents and my coach.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it started. Like I
Wow.
didn't know what to compare myself to, and I didn't have any standards at that point because everything was so new to me. And them offering me that opportunity to go to South Africa for a month in September of the same year, it really kind of opened up my horizons a little bit more. I got to meet other girls or the guys who now had bigger goals that I didn't know were a thing. They
Yeah.
wanted to win AJC and they wanted to play pro, and I was like, playing pro, that's a thing. Like, so a lot of these things really like kind of cooked up in my head. And so
Yeah.
they did
That's
that.
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, it was that was probably a very good experience, and at the time, especially when I went to South Africa. But it was English speaking. I didn't speak English. I spoke French, so I went with a couple actually went with Tunde Segodo, who's another Beninese player, really good player. And so we went together, and I think with someone else. I don't
Yeah.
quite remember. I think Jean Gandonu as well. The three of us went there for a month.
Oh,
I
okay.
guess it was like a trial. Not, I didn't ask any questions. I just went. I was happy to play some tennis with some pretty good people. So it was a trial, and they essentially offered Tuna and I to come back to the French Center afterwards in Senegal. And so I was there for 3 years. My goal, obviously, with that was to play pro. You know, I really wanted to play pro, but I didn't know the logistics that went into that. I didn't.
Right.
My knowledge of the tennis world was very much limited to going to practice and then going to tournaments and then coming back. I didn't know the money that went into it. I didn't know the sponsorships. I was not, up until I left the ITF, I did not know any of that. And so it was after that I started thinking like, well, I do want to play, but I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to do it. I was playing good tennis at the time. And even finding college, that was a pure accident. I didn't know college tennis was also an option. I had no idea. So looking back, honestly, I just went through the motions. Wherever it felt right to go, and whichever door opened that looked like I could accomplish something, I just went through it. I wasn't aware that there were other doors, or that there was work that I could do to have other doors open for me or to me.
That's a beautiful part.
Yeah. So yeah, looking back was rough.
Well, so tell me, when you were playing tournaments in Africa, your parents were traveling with you, right? Like your mom will come with you, or your dad will come with you, or but you're playing for Benin. Is that correct?
Yes. So my parents never traveled with
Okay.
me. They never traveled with me. My
My
dad had no interest in me playing tennis. It was not, I'm just gonna say it in pure like African dad fashion. School is number one,
Yep.
it's number two, and it's number three. So, and I was missing so much school. So he was not interested in that. Also, I was losing a lot, so I get it. But my mom was very invested. She did a lot of she did a lot of negotiations for us, try to get all the paperwork together. So it's because I have two younger brothers who also play. So she really was
Right.
the essentially responsible for us. But she never got to travel unless we played in Benin. So she came and watched those matches.
Awesome. Awesome. So did you start prepping for college tennis while you were in South Africa? You're like, okay, you discovered, because I remember when I went to South Africa, that's when I discovered college tennis, because they were prepping to take the SAT test, and I was like, what is that? They're like, you can play tennis in college, right? So is that when that really kicked in? Like, hey, I can actually go to college and play tennis.
I wish. No. So I actually
Oh
when I
wow!
graduated
Yeah.
Oh, listen, this story is crazy. So when I graduated high school, I was 16. I graduated high school at 16 from Senegal. And so after that, so once you graduate high school, essentially, well, technically you should be 18 and you should be done with juniors, should be done with the ITF, and then you go on through your path. But I graduated at 16 and I was turning 17 in a few months, but there was no plan. Like I just graduated high school and I was done. So I was cut off with the ITF. It was just the end. So I did not know, I had no idea what to do. So I just went back home and I was like, well,
what's next?
I had no idea what to do. And at that point I was playing very, very good tennis, but there was no one has ever told me about any of those options. And so what happened was I kept chatting with a lot of the people I met, obviously, through tennis. I graduated high school in July of 2010, right? And then a month later, I played a tournament in Morocco, which was the African Cup Confederation, I don't really know how to translate that. And I did really well. But at the time, I spoke with one of my friends because I didn't have any plans after that. I did not know how to go pro. I did not know about college tennis or any of that. And one of my friends asked me during regular chatter, like, what am I doing afterwards? And I said, I'm gonna go to Russia probably, since I'm half Russian, go to university. And that's that. He goes, well, if you want to keep playing tennis, you should probably consider college tennis. And I was like, what is that? He goes, well, you play for university for 4 years and you get to compete still. I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. But I still wanted to go pro. Which again, at that point, I didn't know what that meant, really, like financially or logistically. And
Yeah.
so, but he did send me kind of a checklist of everything that I needed if I wanted to go to college, including the SATs and TOEFL. But at the time in Benin, none of those tests were really offered. It was like once a year or twice a year, and you had to register like so far in advance. So it
Oh
was
no.
really chaotic. And so what I ended up doing was reaching out to my coach, who I owe everything to, Clement Gourand. He used to coach me when I was younger, and he lived in Ivory Coast at the time. And they had more dates for TOEFLs and SATs than Benin did. So I decided to go there for a couple weeks, um, take the TOEFL, because the SAT at that point, like I didn't know, I couldn't really get into college because it was already so late. It was already in September, it was in schools have already started. And so I took the TOEFL, trained with him for a little bit, and I finally like talked. I was like, how do I go pro? How do I do this? And so he explained everything. Essentially, it was like, you need money, and I didn't have that. So during that same time frame, the Beninese Federation actually reached out to me, and they were like, well, so far you are the best player we have, and we want to help you, be better, and that could be great for like influencing the younger generation, and helping really put Beninese tennis on the map, because we used to have very good players, but there's always gaps, and the financial
Yeah.
usually doesn't follow the good players. And so they asked me to put together essentially a dossier of everything, like what I would need, how much things would be for 2 years of, if I were to
Wow.
try to go pro for 2 years, which I did. And in that, I actually found, like Clement, he opted to coach me for free, which as a tennis player, that is a gift. That is a gift,
I know. That's amazing.
it was amazing, so I was so grateful for that. And then as far as clothes and all of that, I didn't include it in the dossier at all, because I was like, that's one thing I can figure out. I don't need to overload this. All I need essentially is money for travel and hotels, which essentially I
Yeah.
budgeted it out for, if I remember correctly, it was $10,000. So that was the amount that I put in the dossier. I was like, for 2 years, $10,000, that is all that I would like for you guys to help me out with. They ended up not following through and telling me that it was too much money, and that they're not able to help me with that at all. So I was like, well, now I'm definitely out of options. So I'm definitely going to go to university. But in Russia, again, because college tennis, I didn't, I didn't know anything still. And I didn't have anybody to really ask at that point, except my friend who was overseas, and he did everything he could. But in my mind, I was just kind of like, well, the federation will help me, and da da da. So I just kind of gave up, right? And during that same time, I got a grant from the International Olympic Committee,
Oh wow.
and they gave 4 grants to Benin, and this left it to the national committee to decide who those grants will go to, and it was for the London Olympics 2012. So I was among the 4 that they chose, which was
Okay.
awesome. And so essentially the way it works is they give you an amount of money monthly to cover training and living expenses while you train for the Olympics, so that it helps you qualify. And the way the funds are to be used is totally up to the athlete. And so I got the funds, and I was like, oh, this is wonderful. This is my chance to go to a good academy so I can train well. And so what I did was
Yeah.
I went to Florida. So I went to Club Med Academies under Gabe Jaramillo. It was a wonderful place. So I
Awesome.
spent about 4 or 5 months there. And while I was there, they asked me the same question. They were like, well, you're a good tennis player. What are you doing after this grant runs out? And I was there between April and August 2012. So I didn't qualify for the Olympics, but I was there just during that entire time, met so many amazing people, got great coaching. And they had that question like 2 weeks before I left. They're like, what are you doing after the Olympics? I said,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. And so they ended up hooking me up with a few coaches, with a few heads. So Clemson and Kentucky and Samford were some of the schools that came and checked me out and watched how I played. My game was up and down the point because I was figuring out my life, but it was nice. And that's also when I took the SAT, actually. And this is so funny because I didn't know what the SAT was, and they signed me up for the
Yeah.
SAT. And the day before, they told me, "Oh, well, you can take the afternoon off if you want to review." And I said, "Okay, cool." So I went back to my room and I said, "Oh, I'll take a practice test." And it kept going. I was like, this is a 5-hour test. I was not prepared for 5 hours at all. In my mind, I thought it was gonna be like an hour, maybe. And so the first time I took the SAT, I was so unprepared. I ended up having to take it twice to actually be eligible. But it was just a very chaotic year, essentially, between July 2010 and then when I actually started college, which was January 2012. So I had actually a year and a half gap in between. And then after that,
Wow.
I tried to get my life on track.
That's an amazing journey. And can you imagine how far college tennis like has is because at that time you don't even know what college tennis was. But now, like you're competing under 18 and you have coaches already emailing you, trying to recruit you. And because the reason behind that, they have access to people and like kids ranking now, they can see that early, they can, pick and choose who they want to recruit. I'm sure at that time, if that was available, you could have been recruited like way, way before you graduate from high school.
I mean, I would have hoped so because I think I reached like in ITFs I reached a career high ranking of 140, and that was just playing like grade 4s and grade 5s. I was not even playing
Wow.
anything higher than that. So I feel I could have done better, but even reaching 140 was pretty good. And I think now anyone even in the top 200 ITF should easily get recruited by any school here. So that is definitely a very good tool. And like I think back then it was very hard because it was all emails and who you knew and how, even I mean, social
Yeah,
media wasn't a thing really.
I
So
know.
now I think it's a lot better for under 18s, or like for at least people looking to go to college. It's a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
It's much better because
Oh
when
yeah.
I came, I remember my promotion at that time. There were some girls that would beat me like singles. I never go past quarterfinal, like never, And when I came here in 2010, and I still see those girls back home in Africa. I'm like, you guys beat me. Why are you guys still back home? Like I was first round, second round, and I'm out. And I'm like, wow. So a lot of people didn't catch up to it until, I'll say 2015.
Yeah.
Like only few people were coming, rare people. I have, Takura was here, Admire, the ITF players, some of them were here, but the local players that are just good and don't have any connection, they were not coming.
Yes. That's the key word, the connection.
The
Connection is the key
connection.
word, yes.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
just like I find a lot of people being in my case where they just don't know. It's just information. Like
Exactly.
you see people leave for the States, but you don't know what the process is like. And also,
Thank you.
yeah, there's a gap. There was a gap of information then. And I had younger brothers, so my mom knew the system, and my brother, so they were able to share that information with some of their friends. But if I hadn't gone, I don't know how they would know.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's one thing that pushed me to start my nonprofit after I graduated from college because I'm like, I remember this girl from Senegal, Soda. She's so good. So she only made final. Her and Nino, like final, they were like this, like
Right.
they're both seed one, seed two, and they always meet at the final.
Yeah.
And even I mean, I knew Nino said that she didn't want to come. She enjoyed living in her country. And I was always thinking about Soda. I'm like, this girl, like these girls need to be here, you know? But like he says, the connection and communication and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you
And
so much for
there's sometimes
sharing.
people don't want to. Sometimes I
Right.
think there's also being scared of going into an entire different country because I'm gonna be honest, starting college here, I did not have a good time because you are by yourself and there's not really a support system. You have to figure out this entire new
That's true.
country. You can't work. There's no money. There's so many restrictions. There's cultural barriers. There's language
Wait,
barriers.
Nina, wait.
Ooh,
That's gonna be my next question because
ooh.
so you went through the whole process, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell the upcoming players who wants to go to college what they should be prepared for? Because they think it's easy. You come, everything's handed to you. I'm like, you need to take some tests. They're like, oh, why? How much is blah blah blah? Can you please, if you have to, advise a young player planning to come? What would Niba tell them?
The first thing is you need to make sure you have a list of priorities. What is it that is the most important for you? Like, why are you coming here for? If it's tennis, that's great, because we play tennis in college because we love tennis and we want to continue, and that might be the only avenue that we have. However, you cannot play tennis if your studies do not follow. So you are a student athlete. So my coach used to tell me that all the time. You're a student first because that guarantees that you can stay an athlete.
Yes.
So even if your priority is tennis, right? The schooling, the schooling is very important because it will continue for the rest of your life. It is,
Yeah.
you will learn skills and you might, which I cannot recommend this enough. Pick a major that you can use for the rest of your life. I
More
wish
volume.
someone told me this.
What was
Pick
your
a
major?
major. I did psychology, but I started with sports medicine. So
Got it.
I love
Okay.
psychology. I do. However, as an international student, you can't work really with that. There is no work permits that will allow you to. I mean, there is no. It's not a need, especially as a bachelor's. With a
Yeah.
PhD, absolutely, you can do whatever you want with psychology. With a master's of industrial organizational psychology, you would get jobs. With a bachelor's in psychology, you would get nothing. There is no jobs, there is nothing with that. So I did not know that because I had also no guidance with, well, if you come here as a student athlete, you study psychology and you finish playing your tennis, when you're done playing tennis, you now become essentially a result of your major. What is it that now
That's
you can
true.
do? What job can you choose? How do you apply for different work permits? How do you get visas? How do you find jobs? How do you stay at a job? So all of these are very, very important. And not only like keep playing your tennis, win your matches, go to your workouts, but when you're not doing that, school and then your future needs to be your number one priority when you're not on the
I
tennis
like
court.
it.
So that is
I
probably
like
the
it.
most important thing that I can say because I never heard that. Nobody told me this. It's like once I graduated, I was like, oh, so how, like I have to rent an apartment now and I have to like pay rent, I have to pay bills, and I have to find a job, and I have to find a job that lets me stay here, and I want to still play tennis.
Yep.
It was the most stressful time of my life.
Yep. That was a reality check for me too. Because my major was political science. I remember at that time, my teammate Salif, he's like, "You dumb, why are you picking political science? You can't do anything with it." I'm like, "Listen, I want to become a politician in my country. So let me," he's like, "Go,
No.
yeah, for you." You
Yeah.
know, but when after my associate degree, the school that I went to, they didn't have political science. So I had to switch. I'm like, okay, let's do business, but again, I was in your shoes too.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's tricky. Both my brothers came here, and I'm a lot younger than them, older than them. So
Yeah.
when they came, I was like, listen, I know you're passionate about a lot of things. That's fine. But your passions are going to be second. You will pick a major. You will study
Yeah.
something that once you graduate, you will get a job. Whatever else you like can be your minor, can be your second major, or it can be a hobby. That's fine,
Yeah. That's
And I started speaking like an African dad, and I was like, listen.
Listen, no, that's really deep. So for those who are watching, what Niba really said is if you're coming, have a plan. Have a plan, detailed plan. And when you come, pick a major that will help you find a job as soon as you graduate. Right? And on top of that, your hobby should be like anything you like to do on the side should be on the side. Prioritize education because if you don't pass your classes, you won't be cleared by the NCA or the NAIA to play. So even the NGCA, nothing's gonna happen. So if you fail your classes, no team for you, right? And now, when you're finishing college, start looking for OPT, right? 1 year certificate or permit to work in the US. Start applying for companies, interview, practice, things like that. Did I get that correct, Niba?
Oh yes, absolutely. And I think there's one thing that, for example, I don't know if you ran into this problem when you went college, but we had an international office for international
Okay.
students, and
Mm-hmm.
they have not helped me at all. They were not at all helpful because they didn't understand that well, I have pressing matters. Like I don't know how to stay in the country, and I
Yeah.
want to stay in the country. They have offered me no options, and I would come and ask about the CPT and OPT, and they're like, oh, yeah, let me check that. It wasn't. they weren't proactive about what I needed. I needed to be proactive. I needed to go and find out and ask all these
Yeah.
questions. So when you come as an international, nobody's going to do the stuff for you. You have to go and seek
Thank
all
you.
this stuff out because I mean, I ended up getting a lawyer to explain me all about visas. And so now, anyone who has any questions in the tennis world, I'm always happy to answer because it was, it was rough, just to put it nicely.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I'm so sorry you went through that because the lady at my school, she used to travel a lot. Her name is Jane. She was amazing. Every time we're renewing our scholarship, she send you an email. Hey, I have a new I-20 for you. Come pick it up. A year before I graduated, she called us. It was a bunch of us. She said, "Okay, what's the plan?" We went to her house. She had a nice dinner, and she said, "What's your plan?" So you can do OPT, blah blah blah. She kind of walked us through the options that we had, and I remember that time I went for OPT, and that helped me stay extra 1 year. And a lot of my colleagues, my friend, they were majoring in science, so they ended up taking the science field, and they stayed longer.
Mhm.
You know, so
That's
she
great.
was very savvy of international life because she traveled the world. Such a sweet lady. Oh my goodness. Wow.
That's awesome because I do not hear that very often. Actually, I've never heard that until you saying this right now. And I know a lot of people went at very different schools, and a lot of them had no idea because my international office, no idea. And I was there for 7 years because I
Wow.
did undergrad and graduate program there. And most
Oh
my
wow. Okay.
my brothers, it's the same story. You know, they're in two different universities. The international office, this your case is very special. So whoever's watching this, don't think that's how it goes. It is not. That is the exception.
Right.
Sadia, God
That's
bless you.
very an exception.
Yes,
Yes.
that is
No,
an
that's true because you
go
work
on.
with some schools now and the international office, they don't know what's happening. They're like, they tell players to ask me what they need to do. I'm like, well, you need to send the I-20. That's how they're
Yeah.
gonna get a visa. Okay, what's I-20? You should have
Mm,
an so I have to go give those details because but they still want international players,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's such a big I don't know how to put it, but they're not living in an international player's reality.
Yeah.
It's such a big
Exactly.
box where we it's a lot that goes behind bringing an international player in here.
Exactly.
You
And
know.
I think a lot of people are not aware of the timelines in between. Applying the timeline to apply for a visa, to get an interview time, to actually get all the paperwork together, to get some translations. There is so much time that goes into that. And even when you are already here as an international student and you're starting to plan for your future, you cannot do that 1 week before graduating. It has to be in your
Oh,
sophomore senior year. You have to start
yes.
thinking ahead. You have to start getting those interviews. You have to start meeting the right people. You have to
Thank
start
you.
figuring out what kind of job. It takes all that takes time. And this is not the reality of anyone who's not international because for them, well, they can hang out for 60 days and their visa won't expire. But you can't do that when you're on an F1 visa. You cannot just hang out and
This is a
figure
big
life out.
knowledge. I love that because you're really coming as an international player and you're stating facts.
Yeah.
You cannot just wake up and just relax because you're already here. No, you have to plan the next step. And it
Yes.
has to be a year or even 2 years in advance,
Yes. And
right?
you know, I heard a few I heard a few cases where international students came here and they said, "Oh, it was too hard," and they left, right? And yes, it's hard. Yeah, and sometimes you will want to quit. Absolutely, I've been
Yes.
there, done that, and and I'm not saying that you have to be incredibly strong to go through it, but again, it really goes back to your list of priorities. What is it that you want? You know, because I know a few people who, I even had a teammate. She came, she had a year and a half at the team. She didn't like it, it wasn't for her. And she went
Mm.
back home to South Africa. But when she went back home, she had a plan for what she was going back home to. It wasn't like, oh, this is too hard, I'll figure it out when I go home. It was
Yeah.
hard for her, she knew that, and tennis wasn't her passion. It wasn't something that she absolutely loved. You know, she experienced it, it wasn't it. She went back home, finished university, hasn't really played tennis since, and she doesn't miss it. And that was the right decision for her. So I've heard of a few other people kind of quitting halfway through and going home to nothing. You know, there's nothing that they want to really do. They're not really working towards something else. But which, I mean, that might be your path as well, which is okay. But I think if you've played tennis for so long in Africa, you know, if you played from under 10 and you made it all the way through freshman and sophomore year of
You're not
college,
going back just for
you
nothing.
have some perseverance in you. You know,
Yes.
you've seen some things that like a lot of Western tennis players haven't seen, and you've overcome
Yes.
some struggles that are not normal, right? That shouldn't be struggles you dealt with in the first place. So I think when you are here and you feel alone and you do feel lonely, there's a huge community of us. There's a large percentage of us who played, who struggled through it, but who stayed. And we are, at least in my case, I know, I mean, you have this amazing nonprofit and helping so many people. I know I am always willing to assist, you know.
You have been helping us since day one. So yeah.
Yeah. And so far, I haven't met another African tennis player who hasn't been willing to answer a question or refer someone for a job or, you know,
Yeah.
give someone advice or guidance towards something. So I know that when it gets hard and you want to quit, like, I'm sure, I hope that whoever's watching this and who might be going through that, feel free to reach out. So I
Yes.
know you're
Reach
promoting
out.
that one to recruit. Yes, and we're here.
Yes.
Because, yeah, sometimes it's tough.
Whew, it's tough. I remember my last 2 year in college. I was working at the library. I was coaching. I had a coaching job. I was
Yep.
working at the restaurant. I had 3 jobs. And on
Yep.
top of that, I had to go to class and I have to practice and go to tournaments. So
Yep. Same. I was a tutor. And I taught some lessons on the side as well. And I worked as I was a tutor outside of school and tutor in school, and I worked the front desk in the school as well. And it was too much.
yeah. I mean, after going through that, nothing can break you.
I tell you,
Now that I
man.
see you, nothing. I see you like playing pickleball. We're gonna get to that in a little bit. Winning. I'm like, yeah, nothing should stop somebody that went through all this. Like nobody's gonna tell you don't do it. You cannot make it. You be like, no, let me do it and show you that I can do it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Whew.
Awesome,
Right.
awesome. So Niba, tell us what is life after graduation now?
Mm. I'm still figuring it out, to be honest. I still
We
am.
all do. We all do. We all are.
Well, so when I graduated, I took a year. I used my OPT for a year, and I worked. And I found a job, but again, with immigration, they couldn't keep me full time and sponsor me for a visa. So I got a lawyer who advised me to stay in tennis and was able to get me a work permit under tennis. So that's what I've been doing since. So I've been hopping on the same visa for like 4 or 5 times now, which is
Are you talking
expensive
about O1
and
visa?
tiring. Yep, I have been on the O1 since 2016. This is my fourth or fifth O1 at this point. I lost track. But so I've been coaching tennis since, but I missed the competition. So I went back as an assistant for my university. And then I moved to Nebraska. I've been coaching there as well. University of Nebraska at Omaha. I was their assistant for 4 years. And now
Wow.
I moved to Boston to work at the country club. So I've been just coaching just since. And I played some tournaments here and there tennis-wise. I played a lot more before like 2018, and after that when I moved to Nebraska, there wasn't a lot, so I haven't played much, but I did play a couple like couple weeks ago, just to see if I could hang with the college kid. It was great. I won. I felt really good.
You did. You did.
So
Awesome.
I try to stay in shape. You know, I actually found, I don't know if that's true for you when you started coaching, I became a better player once I started coaching.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
There's
I
a lot
can't
of
stress
things
this enough.
you do
Get a
differently.
summer job, go coach somewhere. You will
So
learn.
I mean, definitely. I can. I feel like I play better now than when I was in college because I'm coaching. You know, I'm
Oh
teaching
yeah.
them, so I'm using that. I'm like, let me coach myself.
Oh
So
yeah.
for those who are watching, O1 visa after you graduate from college, O1 is a visa for athletes with special abilities, right? So if you're in tennis, soccer, basketball, and you play for your country, you play at a certain level, you get a lawyer, and they can actually file that visa. I mean, file for you to get that visa. So it's 3 years. You renew it every 3 years.
So actually, so O1, there's different like ways you can get it. You can get it as an like agent sponsored, I think, or employee sponsored. Um, so something kind of like that. And they're both different. So I've been on one for 3, like think 3 different, and every time you switch jobs, obviously you have to adjust. So you may
Yes,
have to
yes,
change it if you change jobs.
yeah,
So the one I'm on right now is very restricted as far as I can only work for the company that sponsored me for
got
this
it.
visa. And for the O1, you do need a job offer at least, so you can't just apply for it without a job offer. So that's
That's
also very,
that's
very important. Yeah.
that's a really good point there. Yeah. So you need a job offer, and then from there, either your employer can file for you, or if you have money, you get your own lawyer, and then you file for yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Awesome. Well, I mean, this is huge. Now, I'm gonna say what's next for Niba, but I'm thinking so you're gonna think coaching for a long time. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been coaching since 2016, so what's that, 7 years? It feels like forever. I feel like I haven't done anything different. I am I am hoping one day to not coach anymore. I know that sounds maybe sad for tennis,
Okay.
but I love to play. I'm more a
Yeah.
player than I am a coach, which is why,
Let me
any
coach.
tournament that pops up, I play, which again is not a reason why I picked up pickleball like 2-3 months ago. But it's, again, as a tennis player, picking up pickleball is not too bad. It's kind of fun. So I'm gonna be doing that a lot more. I feel like the next couple of years. But any chance I
Awesome.
get, I'll continue with tennis. I mean, I love playing. I don't know how you feel about this, but I've never felt like I reached my full potential with tennis. I never felt done. Um, so I still have a
That's
little bit of
good.
fire in me, and I want to play some. So any chance I get, I'm playing. I'm out there.
I
So we'll
mean,
see.
we love to see it. We just when I saw you back there competing, I'm like, yes, like at least somebody's back there again. I feel like once we graduate, we kind of hang it up, like, oh, we graduated, let me just coach. I play alpha, I do alpha leagues, but that's it. I never competed after I graduated. I was like, I'm done. But seeing you out there, I mean, that's amazing.
I mean,
That's
I look at everyone winning a lot of the tournaments right now. I mean, besides like Alcaraz, but like Djokovic is out there grinding, Wawrinka is out there grinding, Jeleni Shardy is out there like 39. All these guys are like, well, granted, they play like high level since they're like 16, whatever. But I'm like, if their bodies with how much they've played, I'm sure their bodies are beat up, but look at them going. Like all these women also having all these babies coming back and just swinging away.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
very inspiring, and I'm like, I'm turning 30 this year, which crazy, but I'm like, if they're doing it, I mean, I don't get to just be like,
yeah.
oh, I'm tired,
Why
especially
not?
that I still want to play, so why not?
Awesome. I pick up pickleball couple months ago. It's fun. I don't know if I'm gonna compete or not. I'm enjoying it for now. So we'll see how it goes. But
Yeah,
it's fun. Yeah.
it is.
Playing a different sports is fun.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I mean, I'm
Niba,
still
we're
a tennis
coming
purist, but yeah.
we're coming to the end of our interview. Let me see here. How will you this I asked all my guests this question, right? I have it written down. How will you advise our upcoming recruits on setting themselves up for better recruiting opportunities?
um Ooh, that's a loaded question.
I mean, knowing what you know now and what you've been through.
Yes, I would say the main thing would be, no matter what decision you make, right? Whether to go to college, not go to college, anything like that, you have to make sure that it is something that you truly want, and you stay true to that decision.
Awesome.
Just speaking from experience, going to college tennis, I was ready. I was like, there will be obstacles. It will be hard, maybe. I don't know how easy sometimes would be, but I was ready. I was like, I'm gonna go. I will not quit because I know where I'm going after that. I want to play those matches. When
Exactly.
it's going to be tough, I'll have to get through it. And I did want to quit multiple times. Don't get me wrong. Doesn't mean that sometimes I didn't feel weak, but I had to always go back to the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's because I love
Exactly.
tennis. For me, it was that simple. I love tennis. And I loved to compete. Even the matches that I lost, the times that I was injured, the surgeries that I had, through that, it always came back to, oh, I cannot wait to play a match again. And that's what drove me. And as setting yourself up to be recruited, you have to stay true to who you are as a tennis player and as a person. coaches, recruiters, anybody in admissions offices, if they talk to you long enough or hang out with you long enough, they'll be able to see through any front that you put on. So do be honest to who you are,
Awesome.
just for your own good, and then for your future, for your career. If tennis is not it,
Right.
if going to college is not it, it's okay. There's so many different avenues that you can take, but don't do it because someone told you have to, or because it's cool or anything like that. So I would say really staying true to yourself. It goes a long way, because you'll build a
I
lot
love
of
that.
good relationships.
I really love that because thinking about it, some players came and they quit it right after 1 year. Maybe tennis was not for them. But because people are telling them, you're good, you should go to college, they're like, okay, let me try and see.
Yeah.
Right? I really love that. That's really deep. You have to stay true to yourself and do it if you love it. If you don't love it, just look for something that you really love to do.
Yeah, because I do think sometimes, like, going to college or just playing tennis is the only thing that we're conditioned for. Like, these are your
Yeah.
options, and then that's it. And there's so many more options. Like, I mean, the world is a very big place, and there's a lot of different options to explore from. I think another, just to add to that, I would definitely say seek advice. Seek advice. If you want to get recruited, you want to go to school, and you don't know what you should do, what you should say, who you should talk to,
Yes.
seek advice. Enter Recruit is an amazing resource, and Sadia
Thank
knows so
you.
many people who are willing to help.
We
Um,
have you, people like you. Yes.
I will help any way I can, always. And so, yeah, seek advice. Be willing, and cannot stress this enough. Be willing
Awesome.
to
Well,
say
thank you
that
so
you
much.
don't know. You don't know. If you don't know, it's okay. Ask. We'll help.
That's deep.
Yeah.
That's deep. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for dropping that. So for those who are watching us, Niba has been supporting us since we started. She has donated some equipment, money, shipping stuff. She has been part of the whole thing, and she's one of our ambassadors in charge of supporting us throughout the US. Because everywhere Niba is, she's making sure she's dropping something for Interrecruit. If you go through our list of donors, you see Niba there. So Niba is not a stranger to us. We love you. We appreciate everything you do. And listen, we're cheering for you for your competitions, your pickleball competitions. Just post those victories, right? Whatever it is, just post everything. I love
Well,
seeing you out there sweating with your brother. With your brother, that was fun. I was like, wait, what? Like you and your brother playing? That's fun.
yes, it was very. Actually, that was tennis. So he won his bracket. I won my bracket, which was great. So hopefully he'll play pickleball with
That's
me one
awesome.
day. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, anytime you're in Atlanta, just let us know. If I'm coming to, are you in Boston or Nebraska now?
I'm in Boston. I'm in Boston.
Boston. I
Yeah.
love Boston. Listen, Boston is my city. Like, I love Boston. When I go
I
there
love
for
it.
work, I stay extra 2 days and I just go around. I walk, I go to Harvard and I just roam around the streets. I
Sure.
love that city.
Anytime you hear you, I've got to tell me.
Okay,
I
I
love
might
it.
be coming for seminars. Every time I'm there, I'm gonna hit you up.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Niva, thank you so much for joining us today. You dropped some knowledge. I mean, big time knowledge. And for those who are interested in contacting Niva for advice or just point of view or to kind of guide them on visas, anything that Niva went through, I'm sure she'll gladly do that, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you so much, Niva. I appreciate your time. I know you had a busy day today. You had a tournament, and good job. And you made time to meet with us. I really appreciate you.
Of course. Anything for you, Sadia. You're the best.
Anytime, anytime. Well, thank you so much, love. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday, and
Thanks.
I'll catch you on social media or when you come to
Yeah.
Atlanta. Just post your victories. Anything, just post them.
I will. I will. Thank you for doing all
Okay,
this.
love.
You're awesome.
No, of course. Anything we can to help our brothers and sisters, I'm down for that.
Yes, 100%.
Thank you, love. And say hello to your cat. Neva is a cat mom. She loves her cats. I see those stories. I'm like,
I
laughing.
love
She's a
them
cat.
out. I am a cat lover. It's my babies. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, Neva.
Thank you, Sadia. Thanks.
Okay, love. Bye bye.
Bye.